The dynamics of persuasion, interpersonal persuasion. Here's our agenda. We're going to discuss interpersonal persuasion, foot in the door in the face, other compliance techniques, social exchange, compliance gaining, and ethics. Interpersonal persuasion focuses on the dyad, or two-person unit, in other words, the persuader and the persuadee. It centers on changing behavior, on inducing people to comply with the persuader's requests. It examines the strategies people use to gain compliance. Sequential influence techniques include influence that proceeds in stages, each of which establishes the foundation for further changes in beliefs or behavior. When using foot the door, a persuader demonstrates starting off slow and moving to a larger request. It stipulates that an individual is more likely to comply with the second larger request if he or she has agreed to perform a small initial request. Why does it work? Ben's self-perception theory suggests that individuals who perform a small favor may infer that they are helpful, cooperative people, and this self-perception makes them accede to the second, larger request. It may also work because we have consistency needs. Because an individual agreed to the first request, the individual may find it dissonant to reject the second. When doesn't it work? It does not always produce compliance. It is particularly likely to work when the request concerns a pro-social issue. It's more likely to work when the second request is a continuation or logical outgrowth of the initial request. It's not likely to succeed if the same persuader asks for a second favor immediately after the first request. Door in the face begins with a large request and scales down to an appropriately modest request. The persuader makes a large request that is almost certain to be denied. After being turned down, the persuader returns with a small request. It's the target request that the communicator had in mind at the beginning. Why does it work? Guilt. Individuals may feel guilty for turning down the first request. Reciprocal concession. Social judgment process. The first request was an anchor to which the second was compared, making it seem less extreme. Self-presentation. People fear the persuader will evaluate them negatively for turning down the first request. It may also work because we are sensitive to contextual factors. It works well when the request is a pro-social issue. And it works best when the same individual makes both requests. It also works best when there is only a short delay between the first and second request. So here are some other compliance gaining techniques that we're about to discuss. Lowballing. That's not all technique. The Pique technique, the disrupt then reframe technique, and the fear then relief technique. In lowballing, a persuader agrees to an initial condition then changes the condition by raising the initial cost of compliance. In the that's not all technique, just as the name sounds, a persuader offers an extra reason to comply, which usually seems spontaneous. It works in part thanks to the reciprocity norm. The Pique technique involves making the request in an unusual and atypical manner so that the target's interest is piqued, the refusal script is disrupted, and the target is induced to think positively about compliance. Disrupt then reframe works the same way. It disrupts the refusal script and then allows the listener to understand the issue in a new way. With fear then relief, the persuader deliberately places the recipient in a state of fear, then works with them to overcome that fear. The reciprocity norm applies to this compliance gaining technique as well. Social exchange capitalizes on the reciprocity norm. It may draw on a desire for rewards like money or status. For example, Sony provided DJs with laptops and computer games to play Sony's records. Compliance gaining is defined as any interaction in which a message source attempts to induce a target individual to perform some desired behavior that the target otherwise might not perform. Compliance gaining has empirical research to support it. A closed-ended survey method provides individuals with hypothetical situations and asks them to choose among various strategies for compliance. In an open-ended survey method, participants are asked to write a short essay on how they get their way. Taken together, open and closed-ended questionnaires have provided useful insights into compliance gaining. Different techniques gain compliance depending on the situation or context, including level of intimacy, dependency, and perceived rights, among other factors. Personality and individual difference factors influence compliance gaining. These include culture, gender, and self-monitoring. Complications occur when people have multiple, sometimes conflicting goals that they want to accomplish. Individuals frequently must balance their desire to achieve a primary goal, influencing the target's behavior, with an attempt to meet a secondary goal. Persuasion commonly involves some shading of the truth, a tinting that is rationalized by the persuaders and lamented by the message receivers. Where do you feel the ethical line of bending the truth is? I encourage you to pause and reflect on this question. Here's where we've been. You should be able to explain the following tactics: foot in the door in the face, lowballing, that's not all, Pique technique, disrupt then reframe, fear then relief.